May was one of Ash's traveling companions during his Hoenn and Battle Frontier adventures. Though she's not much of a fighter because of her past trauma with Pokemon, she does find her calling in Pokemon competitions. In spite of that, she does have a solid team of Pokemon, so I decided to play through a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Ruby as May, to see if she could have become the Hoenn Champion. Before heading on this Pokemon adventure, May verifies all of the information she has learned about Pokemon during her 10 years of life, and it takes a whopping 2 whole pages. Well, we're off to a great start here. Before leaving Littleroot, I tell my kid brother Max to kick rocks because I don't want his know-it-all attitude on my adventure. I did make a slight sprite change so that Ash is my main rival throughout this game, but I didn't feel like changing the dialogue here. I witnessed Birch being attacked by a tiny little puppy and attempt to save him with a Mudkip.
Mudkip? That's good. Now what should I do?
Call out one of its attacks!
Got it. Use water gun.
But this Pokemon is so vicious that he attacks me for no reason. So let's get a Torchic instead. Around this time, I meet up with Ash and Pikachu, who, for no reason, decide to wreck my bike. That's the only way Ash knows how to talk to girls.
My gorgeous bike. This is all that Pikachu's fault. I've got a bone to pick with them.
And I suppose it worked, because we start traveling together. In preparation for the first real Ash fight, I do absolutely nothing. So David Cook is still only level 5. I need to keep his level as low as possible for now. You'll see why pretty soon. This unfortunately means that Ash's Pikachu, who has gone through 2 regions already and is an Orange Island winner, has just a tad more experience and ends up winning. Dang it. After losing her first battle, May comes to the realization that she doesn't really like Pokemon battles.
Torchic is unable to battle. Mudkip is the winner.
We did it! And losing to a goofball like him? Humiliating.
My sister's pretty lame, but my dad is tough stuff.
So she decides against doing the Pokemon League Challenge. I, however, am forced to keep fighting for my life. Nuzlockes often don't officially start till after you get Pokeballs, so I level up Torchic once and take another crack at Ash. In spite of a paralysis, David Cook does the job and gets to level 7. I wish I hadn't had to level up there, but whatevs. We head back to the lab where I get the Pokeball. Apparently it's the only one in existence, and May quickly wastes it, failing to catch an Azurill. I, on the other hand, run around a bit on Route 101 till I get a Wurmple. With those two, I make my way to Petalburg, avoiding every trainer and wild Pokemon possible. In order to have a fighting chance against Roxanne, I need to make all of my EVs count. So when I get to Route 102, I run around until I find a Ralts. At this level, the only move he knows is Growl, so I'm guaranteed to win, even if it does take a while because of the aforementioned Growl. My plan is to use these Ralts to boost my special attack as much as possible in preparation for Roxanne. But being a 4% encounter, this is going to take ages. Before enacting my real plan, I ensure that Tongi, the newly caught Wurmple, is able to take out a Ralts as well. At this point, I fully admit that I start cheating. Now that I know how much experience a level 4 Ralts gives, I jump into PK Hex. I could have stayed in the game, running around wrecking Ralts till Torchic got to level 12, but ain't nobody got time for that. That would require 600 experience, which is equivalent to 15 more Ralts. Putting this in PK Hex, it brings my special attack EVs up to 17. Well, that did a lot. I do the same thing with Wurmple, getting him to level 7, where he evolves, and then evolving a second time at level 10. He gets 7 more Ralts deaths as a Wurmple, and then 16 more as a Silcoon, before becoming a level 10 Beautifly. Back to the game, I have a private conversation with my father, and this Wally kid barges in and demands a Pokemon. This is not the Pokemon laboratory, you weirdo. But being the nice guy that he is, Dad lends out old Ziggy, and Wally not only finds a Ralts on his first try, but a level 5 one, who does not exist in this grass patch. And I should know. In the Pokemon Center, May is fascinated to learn that all of the nurses are exact replicas of each other. I still don't quite understand that, but whatever. I slink through the Petalburg Woods, which has a surprising lack of Tricos, avoiding every trainer with the exception of the Team Magma Grunt. I had planned to share that Poochyena experience between my Pokemon, but Cook got greedy apparently. Dang it, that's 2.5 Ralts worth of experience right there. I then drop Beautifly into the box, allowing me to skip these 2 trainers and save that experience. Before doing another Ralts massacre though, I head to Route 116 in search of a Skitty. This cat is a 2% encounter, so even less likely than Ralts. I end up stuck here for a long time. I start to wonder if there are actually Skitty here aside from the Swarm event. Eventually though, I do find one. Now I am getting the Pokemon that May got in the show, and in the same order, but not at the same time. Just so we're on the same page. This Skitty isn't caught for quite a while. In lieu of special attack EVs, Skitty levels up, defeating Silcoon and Cascoons with the occasional low-level Wurmple. This one, I don't need to cheat. That gives her plenty of HP and defense EVs, which I imagine I will really need. Now I do go back to PK Hex for the special attack EVs for Torchic, who ends up getting 52, raising his stat 2 whole points, while Beautifly gets an even 100, raising his stat by 3. I hope that this was worth it. The reason for all that work is because Roxanne is going to suck. What with a fire type, a flying bug, and a Skitty. I do change gym leaders' teams to match what they used in the anime, as you'll see shortly. Thanks to all of those Ralts, a single absorb from Tongi immediately takes out the Geodude, leveling him up in the process. Of course, being a flying bug, he needs to run away in place of Kelly Clarkson, who proceeds to lower Nosepass's attack with as much growls as possible. And Nosepass just lets it happen as she hardens. With that, I pivot to Cook, who quickly gets Zap Cannon paralyzed. That was an anime move right there. I'm hoping for a burn with Ember, and do need to risk a few crits here, but burning this rock is harder than it looks. With -6 attack, Tongi is as safe as he can be, unless there's a crit. Then it would be all over. He is hit with a Rock Tomb a few times, Nosepass is healed, but thanks to Absorb, Tongi also gets healed to an extent. In spite of clearly not playing around the crit, I get lucky enough and end up winning. Dang May, that was rough. Oh yeah, and I let Torchic evolve after that fight. Around this time, May makes the decision to focus on contests instead of gyms.
You know what? I've decided that one day I'm gonna enter a contest too, and earn my very own ribbon.
But I don't have access to one at the moment, so that's going to have to wait. But what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel and get more awesome Pokemon content like this. We meet up with Mr. Briny, who takes us all the way to Dewford Town after some seafaring misadventures, and we find Steven digging some holes in a cave on the lookout for Firestones.
A Firestone, what I've been searching for so long.
Before battling Brawly, May tries and fails to capture a couple of water types, like an Octillery and even another Mudkip, as if the first experience wasn't bad enough. Man, stop being such a show-off, Brock. Nobody likes you. At this point, May finally does get a Beautifly, but I had to get one earlier to make the first gym somewhat doable. With my newly authenticated bug Pokemon, let's defeat Brawly. Tongi quad resist fighting, so I'm not expecting a difficult time, as Machop falls in 2 gusts. Ash battles Brawly twice, and during the first round, his Makuhita evolved, so let's fight the fully grown Sumo. Gust does a decent amount, but he keeps bulking up and healing. This wouldn't be an issue if Gust was special, but in Gen 3, it's not yet. When he gets low enough, Hariyama starts using Reversal, which is powered up quite a bit at this HP. Tongi does heal a bit, before finishing the battle with one last Gust. Tongi is actually doing a pretty great job in the early game so far. When we arrive in Slateport, I meet this Drew kid for the first time, and let's just say, he's not my cup of tea.
That for me? Thanks, Drew.
Not for you, it's for your Beautifly. It's obvious that the coordinator still has a lot of training to do.
Well, I guess we all can't be as good as you.
In the show, this is where May enters her first contest, doing about as well as you would expect. But in the game, I can't even do that because Slateport is a hyper rank. Why in the world would they make the first contest building in the game not normal rank? That makes no sense to me. On our way to Mauville City, Ash decides to test out my Poke battling skills, even though I specifically said I just want to do contests. His Taillow would be a major concern if Clarkson didn't take one for the team and force him to fall in love with her. Several very weak tackles later, he is defeated. This brings out Trico, who pursues Clarkson in the back. That was very ungentlemanly of you, Ash. Tongi wins in a single gust. His Pikachu starts with a double team, but is still hit by the Stun Spore. Cook comes out for the first time in a while to double kick the rodent, but gets paralyzed in the process. I need to save my cherry berries for the next fight after all. After a bit of paralysis, an ember finishes the battle. In Mauville, Wally is not a thing in the show, so let's skip him. Instead, I head all the way to Verdanturf Town to enter my first contest. I decide to try out Cook because that is one cool bird. Or apparently not. May isn't great at Pokeblocks just yet. Cook's strategy is less about being good and more about dragging everyone else down with him. He has a couple of good rounds, but in the end, he just wasn't cool enough. Apparently Tay-Tay was, even with that stupid name. I'll try more contests again in the future, but for now, let's head over to Watson. Tongi starts and risks a crit to stun Spore Voltorb. Cook can come out to heal with a berry, of course, and uses a single bulk up. With that attack boost, Voltorb falls in a single kick. Magnemite takes 2, and the single crit kick defeats the Magneton. Watson is a heck of a lot easier without a Manectric. No wonder Ash absolutely wrecked him. After this fight, I decide it's time to get another encounter since I haven't gotten any since before the first gym. And so on Route 117, I find a Bulbasaur. Look at that cute guy. These two don't actually meet for quite a long time in the show, but I want more Pokemon. Bulba comes from the Forbidden Forest, which is so named because all of the Pokemon there are jerks. As May barely escapes with her life, Bulbasaur follows her out. Now Phillip Phillips probably won't help a ton for the Flannery fight, but that is the next Pokemon she got, so I'm sticking with it. We witness a battle between teams Aqua and Magma, and I decide to jump into the middle of the fray. Cook makes quick work of Maxie's Mightyena, but Camerupt is another story. I pivot to Tongi to avoid the Magnitude, and expecting an Ember, pivot to Clarkson on another Magnitude. I didn't see that coming. Expecting, or hoping, for another Magnitude, I pivot back to Tongi, who takes an Ember to the face, surviving with literally 1 HP. Okay, this is not going well. It's time to get serious, and risk Phillips. He comes out on a Tackle, and manages to Leech Seed on a Focus Energy. He Razor Leafs, and then needs to swap to Cook on an Ember. One double kick does the job. Of course, Maxie still has a Golbat, and I don't have anyone healthy enough to swap to, so Cook stays in to avoid a Supersonic, and gets a clutch critical Ember, making it a 2-hit KO. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that was horrible. I did not plan for it very well, and it showed. I'm not really looking forward to Flannery thanks to that battle. I start her gym with Cook, who uses a single bulk up. That way Dig one-shots the Macargo. I had planned on using one more bulk up against Slugma, but since he uses Light Screen, I get to use 2. Dig takes him out as well. Torkoal has a crap ton of defense, so he survives the hit and uses Attract, which sucks because Dig is a 2-turn move, it has 2 chances to fail. I don't want to waste those bulk ups though, so I just go for it, and it actually works. Well, 3 bulk ups may have been cheap, but I doubt I could have won in any other way. At least not without some sacrifices. After that battle, I get a very mysterious egg. I wonder what will come from it. At some point, May learns how to make Pokeblocks. And in case you couldn't tell, learn is in air quotes here. Her signature dish is called May's Purple Surprise. And it is certainly unique to say the least.
Let's try it.
Yep, here goes nothing.
That's a very strange flavor.
I think calling it a flavor at all is going too far.
But it's not completely useless, as it manages to attract a Munchlax who absolutely loves them. Of course, that doesn't mean much, as this dude will eat literally anything, including a Pokeball, which captures him from the inside out.
I think it's caught?
That was a weird catch.
I'll say.
Well, that has some horrific implications. Now, unfortunately, Munchlax did not exist in Gen 3, but I made him anyway, and he can float, apparently. I'm not the best at making new Pokemon here. Give me a break. With his thick fat ability, Caleb John would have been pretty useful in that previous gym. Oh well. On the way to Petalburg to see her estranged father, May enters the Pokemon contest in Verdanturf Town and actually defeats this Timmy kid who is a bit Dusclops obsessed. Little Timmy is beat so badly,
Time is up! And the victory goes to May and her Skitty! We won!
that his face comes off too. Ew. In Petalburg, I'm forced to watch Norman flirt with one of the countless Nurse Joys.
Oh, Norman, are you sure?
Of course. You know I trust you 100%.
Excuse me.
Gross. While we are still in Petalburg, I also decide to just go ahead and get my next encounter. Fishing in the Petalburg pond yields a little Squirtle. Squirtles aren't typically found in Hoenn, so May got hers when Ash and the gang returned to Pallet Town for the Battle Frontier saga. With that, it's time for the Norman battle. I leave with Caleb John just because I can. He gets hit with a crit facade, but thanks to the slack off loafing, he wins in 2 strengths with a silk scarf. This brings out the Fat Sloth King. I'm hoping that I anticipated his move correctly, so I swap to Tongi, who quad resists that focus punch. I then immediately pivot to Lee DeWise, our newest contestant. I could have led with him since he learned Protect, but I wanted to make sure Slacking came out next. With Protect and Toxic, there is no way Slacking can do anything to him. It's pretty convenient I got a Pokemon who learns Protect right before this gym when it's most useful, huh? During some of the stalling, I decide to withdraw a few times in anticipation of Dad's last Pokemon. 2 Hyper Potions, and many turns later, Toxic Stall does its annoying job. After seeing how little a pathetic Water Gun does to Vigoroth, DeWise decides on another Toxic Stall because why not? The only problem is he gets Encored and is forced to spam Protect that continues to fail until Vigoroth falls to the poison. Well, that was not the most exciting battle certainly, but May has officially overcome her father. That's a nice confidence boost right there. Now that May believes in herself, she returns to the normal rank contest with her evolved Delcatty. Now this thing never evolved in the show, but I allow it for this run. I fed it some Pokeblocks, so it is now somewhat cute. Once again, my strategy is limited to ruining other contestants' appeals, which occasionally does work. At the end of the day, Kay Clarkson ends up winning the very first contest, and May gets her first ribbon. But I'm not about to stop there. Instead, we head to the Super Rank contest. And it's close, because Barboach is apparently pretty cute, but Clarkson manages to win yet another ribbon, meaning we are all caught up to the show and May's 2 wins. Especially since the next contest she enters, May ends up losing. And it's not a pretty sight. May has quite the temper.
Hey, wait! I'm not done fighting! Yes, you are!
Ash tries to talk some sense into her, but since that doesn't work, he gets violent too. Clarkson has learned Shockwave, so the double teaming Swellow is completely pointless. Tongi can take the Leaf Blade meant for Clarkson and gets the KO in a few gusts. Phillips comes out on a Pikachu to Razor Leaf a couple of times for the win. I realize that at this point, Ash should have both a Torkoal and a Corphish, so that should have been a longer battle. Oh well. I get to Fort Tree, and my egg still hasn't hatched yet, which is lame, so let's super speed ride on a bike until Eevee pops out his little head. And this is the last Pokemon that May gets. He also comes from the Kanto region, but I didn't want to wait.
Wow, an Eevee!
At some point off screen, this guy evolves into a Glaceon that has its debut when May loses to Dawn in the Wallace Cup a few seasons later. Unfortunately, Glaceon does not exist in Gen 3, so once again, I had to make him. And again, I conveniently got a pretty useful Pokemon right before a gym. What are the chances here? Scotty Mick one-shots Altaria with an Icy Wind, Pelipper attempts a Supersonic that wouldn't have mattered since I have a Person Berry, and then Swellow also falls in a single hit. Well, that was quite the debut, Scotty. Way better than losing to Dawn.
The winning coordinator of the Wallace Cup is... Dawn with her Piplup!
By the way, Snowcloak also did not exist in Gen 3, so I just gave him Thick Fat. There aren't a ton of fire types left to deal with anyway. In Lily Cove, the rest of my Pokemon evolve, and May ends up with 3 fully evolved starters. That's pretty sweet. Ash wants one last battle, so I allow him to get completely destroyed. Scotty starts by Aurora Beaming Swellow to bait out the Torkoal. DeWise comes out on an Iron Defense and responds with Surf. Phillips once again Razor Leafs Pikachu after a couple of misses. Cook comes out on Glalie and eventually gets a Blaze Kick after several protects and a miss. Corphish falls in a couple of leaves, and last is Sceptile. After poisoning him, Phillips retreats in place of Scotty, who then swaps to Tongi on a Screech. With that poison damage, 1 Silver Wind, and 1 more poison, I defeat Ash once and for all. Or do I? Moving on, there is some Team Magma interaction on the show, like when we're kidnapped by them, but here, they just keep running away from me. They're quite a bit less intimidating that way. Though the Moss Deep Gym is daunting, because I've played Emerald so much, I expected it to look Well, not like this. Caleb John was feeling left out after Lily Cove, so I let him evolve too, even though May's Munchlax never did. I asked you all what I should do with May's unevolved Pokemon, so if you don't like that I'm unlocking their true potentials, you have no one to blame but yourselves. In this game, Tate and Liza only have 2 Pokemon total. Dewise starts with a Surf, falls asleep, and takes some damage, while John Shadow Balls Solrock. Next turn, Lunatone is also defeated, and that was really easy. We depart from the show a bit here to infiltrate Team Magma's underwater hideout, where Groudon is asleep. The Maxi battle goes decently well enough. He tries to swap around a bit, but 2 can play at that game, and Dewise ends up surfing through his whole team. Groudon wakes up, and I am forced to face this terrifying beast. Whew, that was scary. Back to the show, May wins her 4th contest ribbon,
We won?
meaning she only needs 1 more to qualify for the Hoenn Grand Festival, but that will have to wait until after the 8th gym battle. Technically this is supposed to be against Hoenn here, but they have basically the same team anyway. I start with Clarkson, who resists falling in love with this sexy fish, and wins in 2 shockwaves. This baits out Whiscash, who survives Philip's Giga Drain thanks to Amnesia, but that just delayed the inevitable. Celio does have a super effective Aurora Beam, but Phillips can take the hit and Giga Drain again. Milotic though is another story. Scotty comes out to take an Ice Beam, and Mirror Coats a Water Pulse right back. He then swaps to John, who can take out the Water Snake at this HP. 2 more Body Slams for Seeking, and that's it. May has won all 8 Hoenn badges. Now that wasn't so hard, was it, Ash? At this point, May heads to Pacifilog to get her 5th and final contest ribbon, allowing her to enter the Hoenn Grand Festival. I need a few more ribbons first though, so I take Clarkson to decimate the Hyper Rank and immediately go to Lily Cove for the Master Rank. On my first attempt, I get 3rd place. Losing to a Pichu, I get that. But in what messed up world is slacking this abomination cute? That is disgusting and I will not allow it. On my second attempt, Delcatty does win. But it's not Clarkson, it's another one. Eventually Clarkson does win, earning the last ribbon, and with it, a spot in the Grand Festival. So let's head on over there. May's mom and dad have decided to come show their support for their favorite child. Just kidding. Her dad is actually Team Rocket, pretending to be a gym leader to give trainers advice in a Pokemon contest. Yeah, cause that makes sense. Her mom is here though, but that means that the real Norman is all on his own, probably hanging out with that nurse again. I bet he planned this whole thing. Speaking of nefarious plots, May takes this random dude's advice in the first round, getting her Skitty confused.
That'll teach you to mess with me.
So taking advice from your competition at face value isn't a good idea? Well, I know that now. Oh yeah, and this also happens.
That's what I call global warming.
It's better without context, trust me. She barely makes it into the second round, as her opponent is the trickster Harley. Not taking his advice this time, May wins, and after a few more rounds, ends up in the quarterfinals against Drew and his specially trained Flygon. But this is as far as May goes, because Drew wins here.
Time is up, and our winner is Drew!
And then he loses in the finals to Robert, who looks like he'd be good at these contests. But there's no point getting too upset about this. I'm sure there will be other contests in the future where May can show her character growth. For now, let's get through Victory Road to start the Elite Four Gauntlet, after beating up Wally, who again, does not exist in the show. Scotty one-shots Altaria, and stays in to defeat Delcatty too. He tanks a crit Thunderbolt from Magneton, and Mirror Coats that sucker right back. Cook Blaze Kicks Roselia, and John Shadow Balls Gardevoir a couple of times. If that's any indication, this Elite Four should be simple. Let's start with Sydney and his Mightyena. Clarkson starts off to soak up the Intimidate before swapping to Cook. He is sand attacked, but still Brick Breaks the dog. Expecting an extra sensory, I pivot to John on a double team. He slams into that tree until it falls. Same thing happens with the cactus. Sharpedo has rougher skin than the cactus, apparently, so slamming him hurts. After taking some damage, I pivot to Phillips to get swaggered, and then Razor Leaf. I pivot back to Cook, who would have soloed this battle if it weren't for that darn sand attack at the very beginning. But he does take out Absol easily enough. Next, it's on to Phoebe. John heals a confusion, and Shadow Balls the Dusclops. Bayonet takes a few hits, but also falls. Sableye makes John fall in love, but this doesn't stop him from paralyzing the ghost with a metronome before taking off. Dewey's rain dances, and Surf's healing with a shell bell. Bayonet is one shot, but the last Dusclops proves to be a bit of an issue. Dewey's gets confused, the rain stops, so I bring out Clarkson. All she does is avoid a Shadow Ball and lowers his attack before swapping to Scotty, who is immediately confused. Okay, let's swap to Phillips, who is promptly Shadow Ball crit. John comes back out, and after several confusion and sleep turns, finally does away with the last ghost. Now Glacia is super easy, barely an inconvenience. All Cook needs to do is use a single bulk up. Combined with a black belt, Brick Break is now strong enough to sweep through her whole team, whose order is slightly different when compared to Emerald. Anyway, that was easy. I'm hoping Drake will be similarly easy, but let's see. Scotty Ice Beam Shelgon, and after a crit Dragon Breath, does the same to Flygon, healing a bit with a Shell Bell. When Salamence comes out, it's time for Scotty to leave. Expecting a Flamethrower, Deweyes takes a few Dragon Claws, and one-shots with Ice Beam. On Altaria, he is replaced with Scotty again, who begins another Ice Beam sweep. The last Flygon Sandstorms, which doesn't help him in the slightest. Since this is Ruby and not Emerald, Steven is the champion. Skarmory immediately falls to Cook's Flamethrower, and Aggron to Brick Break. With a Charcoal, Metagross also falls to Flamethrower, but Armaldo is Cook's match. Deweyes takes an Aerial Ace and surfs that bug. John takes a Giga Drain on the swap and starts to use a remarkably weak Earthquake. Thankfully, Cradley doesn't Giga Drain again, so Earthquake ends up being a 3-hit KO. Last is Claydol, who puts up a Reflect and is Ice Beamed in its stupid, weird eye face thing. And so May has completed her Hoenn Pokemon journey. Before finishing off the run though, let's show off May's awesome base. I tried to channel my inner May when decorating this to highlight the things she would like, while also recognizing the awesome work by my Pokemon. The 3 starters are shown here, with Snorlax and even Skitty. It even has a Skitty TV, like every home should have. With that, May has officially become the Hoenn Champion, and no longer needs to hide in Ash's shadow. At this point in the show, she decides to tag along as Ash returns to Kanto and begins his Battle Frontier journey, at the end of which Ash randomly decides to participate in the Terracotta Town Pokemon contest and ties with May.
The judges have determined that both remaining point scores are even!
Like, how frustrating must that be for your entire character arc to be based around these Pokemon competitions, and then stupid Ash comes out of nowhere with his stupid Pokemon to strip you of your victory? That's just really unfair. So, you know, he deserves whatever is coming to him in Sinnoh. Ash is a jerk. Anyway, that officially ends the run, and on such a high note too. I hope you enjoyed seeing the Hoenn region from a different perspective. Be sure to let me know what you thought of this in the comments down below. Subscribe, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next region.